This is NHTV2, North Haven Government Television, a service of North Haven Community Television. The following program is brought to you through the support of the town of North Haven.
Good evening. I'd like to convene the July 23rd, 2019 North Haven Fire Commission meeting to order. I'd like to ask everyone to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'd like to ask for the approval of the minutes of the Board of Fire Commission meeting, the special meeting held on June 18, 2019.
So moved.
Do I hear a second? Second. Any question on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. The Chief's report.
Chief's report for the month of July. This is going to cover since our last meeting, which occurred on June 18th. So year-to-date calls last year were 2606. The year-to-date this year thus far is 2558. A difference of about 48 alarms, so we're pretty much on par with where we were last year. 5 years ago, we were at 2298 in alarms, which is a difference of 260 alarms. Since our last Board of Fire Commission meeting, we have provided a paramedic intercept. Our paramedic has provided transport to the hospital on 32 different incidents. We've had 16 incident responses to the highway since our last meeting, and 66% of our calls were EMS related. There were 2 incidents in which we were unable to provide a response for, and AMR had to respond solo, and 2 additional incidents in which we were delayed in doing so. Approximately 511 incidents since our last meeting, 123 of which were overlapping, which stays with the 24% overlapping calls that we've seen consistently over the last couple of years. That covers the alarms. Only thing that I have for you for alarms, in addition, would have been the fact that last night we responded to the town of Wallingford, to the Choate campus for a school that was struck by lightning, a building that was struck by lightning. Other than that, nothing particularly out of the ordinary in the last month. That was a rather large incident last night. As far as the budget goes, so a couple things with the budget. So preliminary numbers are coming in now as we close out the last fiscal year, which ended on June 30th. It appears that we are $109,111 over budget, but there's a couple of explanations for that. The first is the fire inspector is not in the budget, but yet that comes out as an expense in our budget. Moving forward, we corrected that. This fiscal year, that's been corrected, so that the expense is in our budget. So this is the last year we should have to be concerned with that. So between that line that's coming out of our budget that wasn't accounted for, as well as training tower, we hired, at the permission of Michael Frieda and Ed Simkowski, we hired a architectural firm to start to design the fire training center here in the back. And that was at a cost of $21,700. And just something else, just that it's interesting, worth noting, and some things that we just can't control. The hydrants, we own the hydrants throughout town. And when a hydrant is struck, there's typically a cost associated with having to repair it. In this particular case, there was an accident in which the individual had no insurance, and it's a $20,000 bill for a hydrant. So those are the things that come out of our budget. So sometimes some of these things are just, not within our control. So that came out of last year's budget as well. Just, it's one of those things I think it's worth pointing out. But all in all, again, looking at this preliminary, met with Mike and Ed today quickly. Looks like $109,000 overspent. However, we had $493,000 in revenue last fiscal year, which puts us at $384,000 in the black. So our permit fee collection far outweighed our expense, and our overage in our budget is predominantly due to the fire inspector. So I think it's worth noting that it does appear that we were on budget for last year, and moving forward, this will be the last time we have to make that disclaimer regarding the fire inspector. Since our last meeting, We've collected $14,126 in permit fees. We closed out the fiscal year with $493,528 in permit fees. We started off this fiscal year now with $8,762. And that's where we're at for the budget. Regarding our fire marshal's office, total of 34 inspections, 8 re-inspections, 12 different code violations have been found since our last meeting, 9 of which have since been corrected. A few of the more significant incidents that have tied us up with the 4th of July holiday, we typically do a lot with firework inspections, so we are at every retail store that was selling fireworks. The final CO for Amazon has been taken care of as of this week. So they are, in terms of the fire department, they are completely allowed to be in that building, and they're finishing up a couple things at the building department, but we've signed the final CO, so that's a rather big step for them. As well, too, on Clintonville Road, the landing is wrapping up, and we've been in there a lot conducting inspections, and then other than that, it's the routine. For training over the last month, truck operations, fire behavior and chemistry, and some EMS updates that have taken place and pushed upon us through the state and our medical control. A few items for executive session, and that's all I have for a chief's report.
Any questions of the chief regarding his report?
Oh, great job, I'll say that.
Well, I concur. I think the budget, being on budget it was our goal, and obviously not having the fire inspectors' compensation in this past budget was the big issue. I think there's so many variables, whether it be the fire hydrants, looking at the architect, the deductible based on the fire that took place and all the damage to our apparatus and equipment that came out of our budget. So when you look at our total budget is what, Chief?
It's about $5 million.
About $5 million.
Yeah.
When you look at $109,000, it's a small percentile that it represents, and actually even taking into consideration all of those variables that we did not have any control over, I think it was a magnificent managerial role that you and your staff performed in order to get us here. And moving forward, considering that all of the line items are appropriately marked and funded, the expectation is that we will be on budget, and certainly with the revenue that we're generating, we will be a profit center for the town of North Haven as far as the department is concerned. So, I think thanks needs to go certainly to the Board of Finance and to finally make sure that all of the appropriate line items are appropriately budgeted, as well as to you and your staff for conducting the due diligence over the budget throughout the year. So on behalf of the commission, thank you for that.
Yeah, sure. It's worth noting that unlike in years past, it appears that the overtime line and the contractual replacement staffing line were both under budget this year.
And that just goes to show the importance of the decision based on your guidance to the Board of Finance to separate those two line items and to appropriately fund them. So that way we didn't look like we were negligent in our oversight of the budget, and embarrassed, to be perfectly honest, because people looked at us and saying, well, how could you be so over budget,
right,
when in fact it wasn't appropriately set up and funded in the line item. So I'm really thrilled that this is finally put to bed, and we won't have that embarrassment in the future. Any other questions of the chief? Hearing none, I'll accept the motion to accept his report.
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any question on motion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? So moved. Correspondence. Any commissioners receive any correspondence? No. Chief?
Other than the routine day-to-day correspondence, no, nothing out of the ordinary.
Okay. As a result of the last Board of Fire Commission meeting, I was asked by the commission to forward a letter to Mike Frieda. This letter was sent out on June 28, 2019, and the letter reads as follows. First Selectman Michael Frieda, Town Hall, 18 Church Street. Dear Michael, at the last Board of Fire Commission meeting held on June 18, 2019, I was asked by my commission to get legal interpretation with regards to naming fire department buildings by either Board of Fire Commissioners or Board of Selectmen. The confusion comes because in 2009, the Board of Fire Commission under First Selectwoman Janet McCarty's administration was given authority to vote on whether or not to name fire headquarters after Chief John Rosadini. So at our Board of Fire Commission meeting, which was held on March 25, 2009, it was unanimously voted to approve naming fire headquarters by our commission as stated in the minutes. However, at your last Board of Selectmen meeting, your commission voted unanimously to name Montauk Company 2 after the late Chief John O'Bear. I look forward to hearing the legal interpretation by the town attorney, and then I will share the information with the Board of Fire Commission members to help clear up this confusion. Thank you for your help in processing this request. Sincerely, Pasquale Nazzalillo. As of this moment, I have not received a response from the town attorney and or from Michael Frieda as it pertains to this request. My understanding is that the town attorney has been tied up with other legal issues, and it is on his agenda to respond to us. But my expectation is that that will not happen until our next commission meeting. So I just wanted you to be aware that this letter was sent out per the request of the commission. No other commissioners had communications? Okay, any question on my letter to Mike Frieda?
No.
Okay. Discussions of unfinished business of the fire department.
So I get a few items listed on the agenda. The first we'll start with is the Connecticut OEMS PSAR application. We've had our third hearing, which took place on July 15th. We're awaiting notice from the Connecticut Department of Health on the status of late file exhibits. There was a late file exhibit that was allowed to be filed up until Monday or yesterday, and we're waiting to see what the outcome of that exhibit was. We don't know that there's going to be another hearing date scheduled. We don't know at this point if there's been enough presented from both sides, a decision can be made. The only thing to keep in mind is that by the time we meet again in September, we'll either have been through a couple other hearings already, or we'll be at the point where we may have even reached a decision. So I just want the commission to be aware of that. This is moving along, and we'll see what takes place. And as a reminder, the transcripts and exhibits and so forth related to these hearings are all public record. So you feel free to pull them up if you so choose to do so. And that's what I have for the PSAR hearings. The Assistance to Firefighter grant applications, the two of them are still pending for the PPE and for the apparatus. There has been none awarded as of yet throughout the entire country. They don't typically start until August, as we've been saying all along. So we hope to hear something, and perhaps again by the time we have our next meeting, we'll have some word on that one way or the other on both of those grants. The training facility located here behind us on Washington Avenue, I have some very preliminary drawings I just want to share with you quickly so that you can take a look at it. So they're not available yet to be published or anything to that effect. It's just giving the idea of what the firm, the architectural firm, and members of the fire department have discussed. It meets the zoning requirements that we had to present. So essentially what you're looking at is a 5-story building with a basement, 20 by 20 in dimension. And the unique thing about this is that the stair configuration changes on each level. Again, as a reminder to the commission, this is not a building that we intended to burn with by any means. First of all, it's wood, but it's not even the intent of it. The intent is there's so many other things you can do besides burning in there. So with the stair configuration being different from each floor to the next, it mixes up the amount of different stairs that we see in the field in different settings. There's going to be different sized windows, again, in accordance with what we see out in the field. There's going to be opportunities on there in the equipment installed on there where it's going to allow us to do different rappelling out of the windows, to practice different types of rescues. It's going to be a steel frame structure with wood on the outside, and it's coming along. So that's what we've been kind of working off of. That's kind of a working draft, and we should have that finalized certainly by the next meeting, and we'll certainly have a list of equipment that we'll need to purchase, and we're continuing to pursue that. And again, this is being made possibility in large part due to the Quinnipiac University donation that First Selectman Michael Frieda had secured for us. So just to give you an idea, that's what it's looking like, and it will be right back here behind us. Regarding, I have a couple things on here for state of fire apparatus. So the commission's aware that engine 2, this 16-year-old engine, was involved in a motor vehicle accident on the highway. I'd really hoped to have an answer as of today in terms of what's going on with that, but I don't. It's kind of caught up right now with the insurance adjuster in determining the extent of coverage that we're going to be provided for that apparatus. So since it's been out of service, it remains out of service, and repairs have not started yet. So we're looking at a significant amount of time still before we get this apparatus back, and we'll continue to work with the insurance company to determine what our options are moving forward. But as a reminder, that leaves us down one engine, which has forced our reserve engine, a 32-year-old engine, to be placed in the service. There's been some issues brought to light that we were aware of. It's to be expected with a 32-year-old engine when you have something that old. One of the things that we had an issue of recently was the electrical in the engine is just starting to fail in various places, and you can't really track it down necessarily very easily because everything in there is so old. And one of the things that had failed on it was a siren. And so it was responding on a non-emergency response for a couple of weeks because there's no other way to have it respond. And it's not ideal. It's not something that we certainly support, but it was either that or take it out of service. We don't have enough engines to just be taking it out of service. So there are some people out there that were questioning that and upset. I really wish I had a better alternative, but I just don't. So the engine that we ordered won't be available until April. I have a grant pending for another engine as well, and I do feel the town has done a pretty good job of tackling the apparatus issues that we've had in the most recent fiscal years, but we just got to stay ahead of it, and we're not ahead of it yet. We're still trying to catch up a little bit here. Engine 1 continues to have some intermittent issues, and I can cover some of those issues for you in executive session, but when that goes out of service, on top of the engine 2 that's been out of service, there's some days around here that we're struggling. We're struggling to keep a fleet active, and we're struggling to, one thing to keep in mind is we don't have a mechanic here. So when we send it down to the shop to get fixed, they try to get to us as fast as we can, but we're no different than many other departments out there in terms of, kind of wait in line. So we're really balancing a lot of apparatus right now and trying to not impact operations. But there's going to be times like what occurred recently with a 32-year-old engine that there's going to be some issues with the engine, and we're going to have to just make do with the best we can. All the engines are safe. They're all passed by DOT inspection, and they all pass a pump inspection. But we start those again in the fall, and we'll see where we're at. So I just want to make sure the commission's aware of it. And that's what I have for old business.
Any discussion of the chief regarding unfinished business?
Chief, what about leasing an apparatus?
Yeah, so it's something that it's not an option available through our insurance company for this most recent impact on engine 2. It's something that we'd have to consider. If we look at another engine that's going to go out of service for a length of time, or if one fails, I think we'll have to do that. Right now, we're doing okay, but every day is a struggle to keep things in service and to keep operations being impacted. But if we end up with some other catastrophic event, whether it be it fails an annual test or whether something else occurs, we'll have to look at that.
Do you have any idea what it would cost?
I don't know what it would cost. I do know that there's a possibility that could exist through New England Fire Apparatus. He and I have already had some discussions, and he's let me know that if it gets to that point, let him know.
Chief, wouldn't the cost be on the lady that hit the fire truck?
So unlike an auto policy that you can have a rental car coverage rider with it, it doesn't work this way for fire apparatus, which is really unfortunate because, especially now, it's a priority to get this fixed, and here we are, we're probably 5 to 6 weeks after the impact, and we still don't even have it getting fixed yet.
Is their insurance company offering anything, or are they just taking a,
So it looks like their insurance company, the issue isn't so much the insurance company, and certainly by no, they're not already going to who's at fault or anything else. What they're trying to come up with is, it's looking like it's just shy of $60,000 in repairs.
How much, Steve?
60,000. And there's some conversation going back and forth over, is it worth it to put that kind of money into a 16-year-old engine? Well, 16 years old, that's our third newest engine at this point. And trying to determine what the value is present day for that engine, and if it's worth putting 60,000 into it or not. And that's where I'm trying to determine what the options are, and as you know, it's not entirely my decision.
no, the insurance company's liable to just give you the money for what it's worth?
Which would then create a deficit,
Then
because
we have a
if they're gonna
deficit,
give
we
us a
have to-
replacement value of, let's say, 150, well, I can't buy a new engine for 150.
Exactly.
So those are the angles that we continue to kind of work on and see what's gonna happen.
Well, it certainly puts us
A dilemma.
in a dilemma. There's no question about it. And obviously, it's difficult to perform the duties. As it is, when you look at this month, we were not able to respond twice to calls, and we were delayed 2 other times. So, things don't get any better when the apparatus is down. So, yeah, please just keep us abreast of where we are with that. It'll be interesting to see how that shakes out. As far as who's determining whether or not it's worth to put the 60,000 into the existing vehicle apparatus? Is it are we
Our insurance company.
our insurance companies? So they would then determine what the actual replacement cost is for that apparatus.
Correct.
And to replace that with a new piece, you're talking 700,000
Yeah.
thereabouts.
So we'll be
That was-
short.
That was a structural engine, and for the viewing audience who don't know the difference, we have engines, we have 7 engines, but 4 of them are set up as structural engines, and 3 of them are set up as more specialized engines, and that has a lot to do with not only the equipment that it carries and the compartment size, but some of the hose that it carries as well. So that was a structural engine that took a hit, and to replace it with a structural engine would be perhaps that much money.
Okay. Any questions?
Now,
Thank you for that report, Chief.
very good.
New business of the fire department.
New business, I have one item listed as the Boy Scout Explorer Program I'd like to go over with the commission. I'm going to allow Deputy Chief Martis to present that to you.
So we've been looking for different ways to recruit new volunteer firefighters. I think one of the trends that we've seen in the volunteer fire service as a whole is that the groups that we're getting are now younger kids, which is why we're having trouble with retainment, because they're coming here to learn the trade, to go off and have a career full-time as a fire department. So to that end, I was trying to kind of look for recruitment opportunities that might solicit the actual type of kids, people that we're looking to join. And the Boy Scouts came up. Many years ago, we had an Explorer post here. It was started by Chief John O'Beer, who's big into Boy Scouts. I was actually a member of that Explorer post, and it kind of went by the wayside. So the Boy Scouts of America sponsors this program. It's called the Explorer Program, and it's actually set up exactly for that. It's police officers, fire department, I know there's some construction, there's all kinds of different trades and crafts, healthcare, that basically contract with the Boy Scouts of America to handle these young people starting at age 14's ability to come into the services and explore a potential career in that service. The benefits to this for us, the big benefits that I see, first one is the limited liability to the town. We use our youth. A lot of different towns have cadet programs or junior firefighter programs, and I've researched a lot of those. The problem is the insurance and the rules and the management all falls on the department, so the liability would fall on the community. In this instance, the structure and the management, the international management, and the training, a lot of the training falls into the Boy Scouts. And because of that, they absorb all the liability. They carry a $1 million liability umbrella policy for all of the kids that are involved, including injury and other incidents that may happen while they're training. The Boy Scouts provides training for our fire officers in the department so that they can understand how to handle kids, youth. They offer training, and that's all free. The training for the leaders of the program, the people that we select, the members of the department that we select to oversee the program, that's all free. They offer a youth protection training program, which we pay $38 per member for, which I think is a kind of a drop in the hat, which basically teaches the members of the department how to care for kids, how to recognize at-risk kids and stuff. The program itself would wind up with a board, which would have an institutional head, whether that be the chief or whether he designates myself or Deputy Chief Marcarelli. We would select several adult leaders from the department. I've already identified a few members that are expressed an interest from the volunteer fire department to oversee it. There would be a chair of this committee. We could also bring in like 2 community members, maybe a member of the commission and somebody else to sit on this board. The nice thing is that it allows us to get the kids in. They supply us with a whole bunch of training and drills that we can run them through. It's a structured program, so that usually I just talked to Guilford Fire today actually, and the way they tailor it is the kids can join their freshman year of high school, and then they train them. They meet on a separate night from the fire company, so they don't actually integrate into the department right away. And then after they've proven that they have some desire and they're good kids and they're not in trouble, they start to integrate them into the fire company. They allow them to assist on some calls, changing air bottles and carrying hand tools and stuff like that. And again, all that insurance and liability is passed on to the Boy Scouts, which is pretty nice. And the idea is that after their 4 years in high school, these explorers have a good identity of whether or not they want to be firefighters or whether they don't. And it transitions them into the volunteer fire companies, which then transitions them into a professional career position. So it's a decent program. The only drawbacks I've heard about it at all from one department was he said they outgrew it. They said they loved the program, it got them started, it got them improvement, and then they started to realize that there were some restrictions with the Boy Scouts that didn't seem to fit their department. But he cautioned me right out. He said we were with them for 7 years and they were absolutely fantastic to work with. It was just that they were very successful with the program. The Boy Scouts has also stated that they will help us and almost handle all of our recruitment. They'll give us all the flyers, they'll set up an open house, they'll deal with the community service office at the high school to help us start to solicit new members. And just based on the fact that right now we have no junior program, and we all know that there can be some, we don't want to just start introducing, teenagers into the firehouse without some kind of structure. And especially since we haven't had a junior program in a very long time, I just think that this is a really good way to go to get our feet back into the youth recruitment. I think that this is the target audience that we want. We're seeing we're up to 7 volunteer firefighters that have enrolled in paramedic school in the last year. I think there's a reason for that. and I think the ability to capitalize on that, and even if we lose some of our workforce to other departments down the line, if we can get a couple good years out of a couple of good kids. The U.S. military has done that for 150 years and it's worked out for them. So, I think it'd be my recommendation that we move forward with setting up an Explorer post for the North Haven Fire Department.
Any questions of the chief?
Is there any way that they can transfer some of their credit or whatever they're gonna, whatever system they can develop to transfer it to high school credits?
Yeah, so they qualify for community service. The Boy Scouts will set that up, but all the high school kids in North Haven are required to have community service. This will translate, community service to the fire department will translate to their community service hours, which is one of their big selling points, get them involved in a department and then they can do their hours in community service. I don't know about actual high school credit for classes. I didn't get that far, but I know it will translate into the community service hours that they do.
Sounds like a great thing.
Chief, how does their training program coincide with the basic training for our volunteers?
So essentially, they'll give us more or less a roadmap of, to be honest, it's mainly fun. You know what I mean? It's fun training. The design is to show them some of the things that we do to get them kind of excited about the fire service. We then take their roadmap, so they have like a standard training format. They'll say, hey, this is, say, personal protective equipment training and drills and practices you can run through with the kids. We would then adapt that to our equipment, right, and make it our equipment or our apparatus specific. One of the big things is early on in the program, they're going to meet on a separate night outside of the company with these adult leaders. We'll integrate them slowly, so they'll really have they won't get lost in the shuffle. And I think that happens whenever you have a new member or a young person. They come in, and our training nights, especially now on Wednesdays, they're busy. I mean, we've got 3 different companies all doing different things, and I'm bouncing around and trying to keep everybody focused. It's tough to take a new member now who's 40 and say, hey, this is how we're going to get you interested, and they don't lose their attention span as quick as a 14-year-old. So the nice thing about this program is it's our membership, it's our equipment, but it's their own night, and they kind of come in, and Boy Scouts will hand us the training, and then we will adapt those training lessons to our equipment and our specific department.
Any other questions of the chief?
How many students will they be able to accommodate?
So with 4 adult leaders, we have 4 designated adult leaders in the program. We can accommodate, I believe it's upwards of 16 kids, and then so it can get pretty big.
So it's a 4-to-1 ratio?
Yeah, it's 4-to-1 ratio. I know Wallingford. I talked to actually Chief Wall last night on the front lawn, and he said they have like 19 explorers in Wallingford or something like that. So they can get pretty big. I just think that it's a low cost, efficient way to assist in recruiting and boosting the number of volunteers, which we've all been evident that we desperately need. And it's another way for us to develop a good. I was an explorer in North Haven. You know what I mean? And here I am. So it's a way to kind of, it's a good farm system. It's a great way to do it.
Sounds like a marvelous way to do some recruitment and at the same time help to cultivate and develop a love and affection for fire service and public safety in some young people to build a career. So look, I'm in favor of us implementing something like that. Is there any question on this commission as to whether or not you're in favor of implementing something like this?
Absolutely in favor of it.
Anyone
It's a great
against
thing.
it? Sounds to me like you have the blessing of this commission. I'm not certain that we need a motion for it, but I think you certainly have the blessing of this commission to move forward.
Excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yep.
Thank you for the research on that.
We've talked for years about recruiting in high school,
Yep.
and this is the best way to do it.
Absolutely.
The only thing I'll say to the commission is there's the deputy and I have already had a few conversations. I will certainly make the commission aware as we start moving forward with this over the next couple of years. I think that the ability to ride with Apparatus during particular incidents will be both age-driven and experience-driven. So I'm also a product of a similar program, and even as between 16 and 18 years old, there are only certain calls that you were able to go out on, and we can certainly develop that as we move forward with it so that the commission's aware of it as well. But initially, there will be none of that.
Well, we'll certainly leave that in your skillful hands to be sure, one, that these young people are safe, and two, that we minimize the liability to our town. And I think the $1 million umbrella policy under the Boy Scouts is absolutely wonderful, and it covers all potential injuries or accidents, and I think that minimizes the town's liability and certainly this department's. But I think it's a wonderful opportunity. So thank you for bringing that to our attention. Appreciate that.
It would be really nice if they could develop a school program where folks could start as freshmen, like you're talking about, and go all the way through the 4 years and accumulate some kind of credit to transfer to, say, the University of New Haven.
Right, yeah.
Because, I mean, this is a perfect opportunity. I mean, there's so much talk now of, downplaying college and putting more emphasis on trades. And I know people have asked me, what's the best course of action for their child who wants to be a firefighter?
Yeah.
Well, my suggestion is spend $10,000 and send them to paramedic school and save yourself $200,000. But if they could develop that in the high school and then get, good credits towards their high school graduation, but also be able to transfer some of those credits over to the University of New Haven, I think would be outstanding. But, I mean, you have to get teacher certifications and stuff like that, I guess.
Look into it, yeah.
Yeah, it's certainly a Board of Education discussion and, superintendent of school kind of thing. But I think that's a great point. So, let's go for it.
Excellent.
Great.
Proceed. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good job.
Right. Anything else there, Chief?
No.
All right. Discussion of the good of the fire department.
I have nothing listed on your agenda.
Okay, I see our union president is here, Lieutenant Aubert. Any?
I have nothing for you tonight.
Okay.
Thank you.
I certainly like to make a comment. Most recently, there was a article appeared in the local paper regarding Commissioner Criscolo and the contribution for the ballistic vest and helmets for our firefighters, and the total amount of monies that were raised equaling $100,000. Certainly, on behalf of this commission, I want to thank Pete Criscolo, Commissioner Criscolo, for his effort. As we're all aware, that the Board of Finance decided in their wisdom not to approve the ballistic vests and helmets, even though the chief clearly articulated a message of importance and safety for our firefighters in the event of an active shooting situation, similar to what we had on Middletown Avenue with the explosion at the barn with explosives or whatever it was that injured our SWAT team and other personnel. Certainly on behalf of our commission, I want to thank you for that effort, Commissioner Criscolo, and I'm not quite sure when those ballistic vests will be available for our department, but certainly when they are, our firefighters will be better protected as a result of your effort.
Thank you very much. I gotta be honest, it was a big team effort. The chief did a tremendous amount of research. He followed it through. He went through the Board of Finance, as you mentioned. Unfortunately, the town did not have the funds. Chief sat down with me, we talked about it, and I bother him on a daily basis.
Hard to believe.
Nights, days, I called him up. He did a lot of legwork for me. He ran around, I called my friends, obviously, and they were willing to put up the money, as they did in the past. But the chief was very important in getting all the stuff that I have helped purchase. And as I said before, it's a team effort. It's a good town, it's a wonderful town. All the departments run well. I mean, we should be very proud to live here. And again, it's a team effort. People gave me the money, but it's through working with a good team. So I want to thank you for recognition.
Absolutely. When do you anticipate the ballistic vests will be available?
Again, I'm going to go to the chief and bother him again.
Okay.
So we're
My son, good.
we're sizing some staff now to just make sure that we're while they're not going to be specific to any individuals, you still need to make sure that they fit a majority of your staff. So we're going through and doing some sizing as recently as today. The order should be placed within the next week to 2 weeks.
And how long would it take before we're able to
It won't be
obtain them?
that long. I'd imagine by our next meeting we'll have them.
Perfect. I think the sooner the better.
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
Thank you
Those are
again.
going to be kept on the truck, chief?
Yes, sir.
Not on the individual, he's not going to show up with them on.
Correct. Yeah, they'll be specific to the riding positions. Yep.
Good.
Thanks.
Well, thank you again. Public comments. Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to move into executive session.
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? So moved.
Bless you.
I'd like to resume the July 23rd, 2019 North Haven Fire Commission meeting. We have three motions that need to be made. I'd like to start off with Commissioner Criscolo.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to elevate firefighter William Christie to grade B, effective August 11, 2019.
Do I hear a second to the motion?
Second.
Any question on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Commissioner Mulligan?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to accept Christopher Moran as a probationary member of the Mono East Company 2, effective immediately.
Do I hear a second to the motion?
Second.
Any question on the motion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? So moved. Commissioner Capucci.
You're close.
Yeah, it's like
I make a
Nuzzolilla.
motion to accept the resignation of Michael Pedalino of Northeast Company 4 effective August 1st, 2019.
So moved. Oh, I'm sorry.
Do I hear a second to the motion?
Yes, so moved.
Any question on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Any further business coming before this commission? Here are none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
This meeting's adjourned. Thank you very much.
The preceding program is brought to you in part through a grant from the town of North Haven. Watch town meetings or other videos on demand at nhtv.com.